Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where we talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Legacies. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. First and foremost, let's start off with everything in limbo. The whole situation with poor Landon having to deal with the aftermath of like, yeah, I'm pretty much going to be stuck here for all eternity. I'm kind of screwed. And you have the necromancer taking advantage of his situation, being like, well, I mean, his circumstances, like, right, there's an availability at the bar now that the gin's going off the piece, so I'm the one taking over. And I love that that monster stops him. He's like, hey, you come up short. And it's like, you don't even want to go to peace, so why are you collecting coins? He's like, well, because they matter to other people, and I want to be the one who has the most. I'm like, okay. And now it's like trying to figure out what he's going to do. It's like, yeah, we're talking about the ferryman who can't talk. And then the ferryman is like, oh, we should talk. And everyone's like, everyone froze. It's like, wait, what? I guess in all the time everyone's been there, no one's heard the ferryman talk until now. So they go and talk, and it's like, right, maybe to make this a little awkward. And then the ferryman changes, and you're like, oh, the ferryman's a she. Holy crap. And I won't lie to you, it was driving me nuts. Because I didn't catch the names at the beginning of the episode, so I had to rewatch it just so I could get to the intro title card to find out why the actress who plays Lynn, the ferryman, looks so familiar. I was like, why do I know you? I don't know what it is. Finally found out. The actress who plays her is Tasia Tellis, and I might be like butchering her name. It's freaking Echo from the 100. I felt so stupid for not recognizing her. I was like, that's why you look so familiar. It was driving me insane because I kept looking at her face. I was like, I know you, I know you, I know you. Granted, she has like blondish hair, so I think that was probably throwing me for a loop because obviously as Echo, she had like brunettish hair. So I'm like, that might have been throwing me for a loop. And obviously it's been a while since I've seen the 100, but I was still like, I feel so bad for not recognizing her. I was like, but of course. I was like, that's so dope, Echo. Well, her real name was Ash. Like, she took her friend Echo's name. But tangents and all that aside, I was like, oh, that was interesting. First and foremost, and just like, obviously your boy Landon's flabbergasted by like, she's like, yeah, I just figured this would be a little easier. I'm going to talk to get to know you. And so it turns out, hey, she's a god, which we did have Ken this episode reference like, oh yeah, my siblings. So he's killed all of them, which I'll get to Ken soon enough about like, man, I'm surprised. I don't know why. And maybe that's why. The interesting thing is, despite all her revenge and everything, how Aurora has such a blind spot, like I said, but we'll get to that soon enough. But Lynn was a god. She's like, at the time, we didn't really know we were gods, but it's not until we met humans that we realized, like, oh, we're different. So, because I'm trying to think, like, what mythology because they are pulling from Greek and Norse mythology, because Ben's supposed to be, oh god, I always... Wasn't Prometheus, was it? It was Prometheus, right? Yeah. And that's from Greek mythology, but like I think they blur, because like, I mean, maybe I'm mistaken. I mean, it's all probably like the same thing, it's just like different, like, you know, mythologies give them different name, like the afterlife is just called Valhalla, but I'm like, Valhalla is like Norse, isn't it? So that's why I was like, oh, they like, I mean, I think just show like conflates and puts together like different mythologies from different backgrounds, so I don't know why that's too much of a shock to me, but still. It was interesting though, finding out like, oh, Lynn's one of his siblings, one of many that, well, I guess she's not dead, she's just more so cursed. That basically they came to this world to conquer because her brother was never satiated. He always had his ambitions, and it grew and it grew. Came to this world, so much war and death, and she was basically in charge of being the ferryman, and there was just a large wave of people that came through. And so it used to be a trickle, and now it's a large amount of people. And she felt so sympathetic for a particular family that she carried them over into their home. And it's like, right, if like we came and invaded their home, why shouldn't they be able to enjoy peace in our home? Because that's what peace actually is, their home of Valhalla. But her brother found out about it and did what he does, punishes. And I'll go ahead and talk about it here, and we'll talk about it more there. Man, oh man, can you see the major parallels between Ken and Klaus. It's like, oh, like they were already there before. Oh, like torturing your siblings like that. Of course. I mean, Klaus never killed any of his siblings. he locked them up. Obviously, he threatened to kill them and made their lives hell, but he never went that far with any of his siblings, so. But regardless, all to say that Lynn used to have such a big heart, but when you hear so many sob stories of it just becomes too much to bear. So to make things to like not have to carry such that emotional weight, she created the coin system, but the whole system just made, she thought, oh, like you bring me enough coins to equate why you should go to peace. And it just made her grow cold. She made a joke earlier about like, oh, the reason why she looks skeletal is because she hasn't taken care of herself. But I think she started feeling like it started reflecting how she was on the inside, just because she grew so cold and distant and didn't care as much anymore. And that's what we come to now. She wants to make Landon her replacement. She wants to be able to go home, but the curse can't be broken until she finds someone who wants to take the job. But no one has ever willingly wanted to take the job. I mean, you would be giving up the rest of your life. I mean, because Lynn even says she's been doing this for 10,000 years. So, of course, you're going to grow a little cold and go in and listen to those many stories and just like going for such a long amount of time. Like, of course, like she was going to have that very skeletal exterior, but she wants to give it to Landon, but Landon's like, why me? She's like, the fact is you were willing to give up your peace for someone else. Then, like, the fact is you opened a stand, you were willing to help. For her, it's like, you're a miracle. The fact is, considering the shitty hand that life dealt you, you could have easily, and no one would blame you to be bitter and angry, but instead of dwelling in that bitter and angriness over what you've had to lose, what you've had to sacrifice, you instead took that and did good with it. You are the perfect person for this job. Because, you know, he wears his heart on his sleeve. He does care so much. And the question is he going to take the job? And he does, because I think he also wants to, like, let Lynn kind of have some peace as well with everything. So, and I love that. I love the necromancer being like, oh my God, that minx tricking you like that. And I love that Landon's like, right, so if you had the same opportunity, you wouldn't treat me in the same way? He's like, of course, but I'd come up with some convincing story, not some naked attempt to, lean into your guilt or whatever. But it's like, yeah, obviously the necromancer doesn't want to go to peace. And so, but, because at the end of the day, Landon went ahead and he's like, oh, I said yeah. Because he's like, oh, how'd you tell her off? You flipped her, gave her the middle finger. It's like, no, I took the job. And it's like, right, you might not want to go to peace, but I made a promise to someone else. And he turns the necromancer back into Ted, and it's like, whoa, how'd you know that was? I didn't know, but I hoped it would, Also, we don't know how much longer this is going to work, so you might as well try and get you to peace as soon as possible. I'm like, yeah, Ted. The Ted. It's like, wow. Because I was almost hoping, I was like, you don't think they'll do a thing where it's like the necromancer is going to stick around and be his sidekick? I was like, I'd actually kind of like that a lot. But turns out it wasn't going to be the case. But I thought it would be pretty dope. But it's like, he'd be the worst assistant, because he'd probably help you, but he'd like sabotage you in so many ways. And it'd be a whole like, it'd be their shtick. But no, it doesn't seem like that's the case. So. But jumping ahead a little bit, I'm going to go ahead and talk about it. I think this is going to get a little sad and depressing, because I think we're going to be in a situation where Landon's going to end up seeing some familiar faces. But I think that's going to be the beautiful thing of him being able to send people he cares about. I think at the end of the day, like when people eventually grow old and pass on, like say, like for example, like Alaric or someone grows old, because the witches will eventually grow old too. Probably like when all the supernaturals eventually die, potentially they'll all pass through. So Landon will be able to see everyone again to some point as he walks them off to peace. So there's that beautiful nature. Because him taking his job, it immediately made me think of spoilers for the magicians. It made me think of Penny when OG Penny from this timeline. Not Penny 23, but OG Penny became, the way he sent, spoilers again, Quentin. I was like literally blanking on Quentin's name for a second there. Like that send-off, I get the feeling like we're probably going to get one like that probably at the end of all of this, which we'll talk about later, but I could definitely see them setting the stage for something of that nature. Because I think it's going to be interesting, because jumping around, every show has a depressing ending. Like, it's a beautiful ending, but it's still sad. The Vampire Diaries. beautiful, sad ending. The originals, beautiful, sad ending. The final battles to those always end beautifully yet sadly. There's always a sacrifice, and things kind of work out in the end, I guess. You know, like Klaus and Elijah got to go off together at the end. Everyone kind of reuniting eventually at some point at the end of the Vampire Diaries. So, you know, I get the feeling Legacies, especially if they're going down this route, will probably end up that same way. Like, everyone will eventually reunite in peace type of situations. I could definitely see it ending in a beautiful sense like that. Very much like the Vampire Diaries in that regard. But jumping into other elements of the episode, obviously we have, you know, the other aspects are very into like the interpersonal. Well, obviously everyone's setting the stage for the final battles, you know, getting ready to fight against Ken, and everyone's doing their preparations, even Ken himself, and the whole him and Aurora, which this is what we're going to get into. Like, I think Aurora, because Jen later on talks about her, like, right, I'm aware of the patterns I'm in, kind of talking about how Aurora isn't. It's like, right, the reason why you're going after, you wanted, Hope dead in the first place is because of your beef with Klaus, but she's kind of blind to the fact is, she kind of called it out, I want to say last episode or something, but now she's still stuck in a cycle of not realizing, like, oh wow, I'm allowing myself to be manipulated. I mean, the way he's treating his daughter, the way he treats his siblings, don't you see an interesting parallel to how Klaus treats people too? Treated his own siblings? But I will say that big difference though, Klaus never treated Hope like that. You know, because by the time Hope came around, like, he always wanted to be a better version of himself for Hope. So he was always on his best behavior around Hope and always tried to be a better version of himself because of Hope. And so that affected the way he treated his family. But for 1,000 years, he was the shittiest brother in that regard, you know, when it came to his siblings. So once again, he had his reasons. Obviously, everything with Michael, you know, his very, very abusive father, like, led to all that. But it doesn't, you know, doesn't justify him being so abusive and toxic towards his own siblings. But regardless, the fact is that she's like trying to touch on him, and he's like, yo, like, no. He's like, I let my guard down, and she's like, because he's like, my paranoia is what keeps me alive and going. And I'm like, just like someone else we know, a certain Michelson that you hate, he was majorly paranoid, and that made him always put his paranoia always got the better of him because he always assumed everyone was after him. He could never fully trust anyone. He put his suspicions before love. Suspicion came before love in many different regards when it came to Klaus. I want to say the only person he was never like that towards was Hope. You know, she's probably the only person in existence he was like that with. So that's why I'm like, the fact is Aurora can't see the patterns that she's in, that she's kind of repeating history with Ken. So it's like, yeah, you go convince my daughter to make that weapon, you know? And it's like, or, and if I can, it's like, well, you know, my siblings, they try to get in my way. You can go ask them. You can find the pieces to their body. So she goes to find, Klaus, yes, he daggered his siblings, but he daggered them, but he didn't torture them per se. You know, so the fact that he locks his own daughter in the coffin and punishes her. Like, we don't know if his circumstances were like that. It's probably like extra punishment he's dishing his daughter. Probably like him and the others in the coffins probably never really had to go through that. Who knows? But poor Jen. That was kind of an interesting development there, and once again, it's like, cool. She doesn't really want to build her dad the weapon. And it's like, oh, what did my dad promise you? Oh, Dad, oh, you're the reincarnation of love, or we'll rule together. It's like, really? She's even saying like, oh, but I saw your father's memory of like what you guys did. It was like, oh, you do know my father can manipulate his memories to show you what he wants you to see. It's like, no. It's like, fine. Jen's like, fine. You know, maybe I should just build a weapon. I'm stuck in this pattern and I can't escape who I am in this regard. But at least I recognize I am stuck in a pattern. I know what I'm stuck in and what this situation is. Once again, calling out Aurora for being blind to it. So I think her eyes are going to be a little more open to Ken. It's like, once again, yeah, you're entering another toxic relationship. So, you know, you are so pissed at Klaus, you're trying to recognize the toxicity of the relationship between you and your brother, which, once again, Klaus had a very toxic relationship with his siblings, too, so it's like interesting parallels all around. So, that's going to be interesting. to see how things play out on that front. Other elements to the episode, I did like that we kind of got Hope training Alaric. It's almost beautiful how it comes full circle, him training her, but she's training him because his leg's messed up, and it's like, right, you can't pivot like you used to, and it's like, right, her being the one is like, oh, come on, get up, and like, don't give up, and it was like, it is beautiful and sweet for it to kind of come full circle like that. But for him, it's like, right, I'm not going to be useful to you guys in this battle, because their plan is to set off essentially what was it, phosphorus and sulfur that would basically be a weapon that could even harm the gods, so it could be used against Ken. So they plan on unleashing like a massive chain of explosions of this phosphorus that will end up burning and hurting Ken. So, but they're going to need someone to set it off, but whoever it does, it will not probably have enough time to get away. Once again, spoilers. The Magicians very much reminds me of the whole thing with Quentin, like his death. It seems like kind of a chain of events, kind of similar to that, his death. So, it's gonna be interesting to see like once again like who makes it and who doesn't make it, who doesn't. But they've got this plan set in motion, but someone is going to have to set that off, and whoever it is, vampire or not, probably won't get away fast enough. So the question is, who is it going to be? And Hope hasn't decided. She could ask the thing, like, to get the answer, but Alaric's like, no, it's going to be me. We both know it's got to be me because I'm not useful in this fight, so it has to be someone who can get it done, and it has to be me. Like, everyone else is necessary for this, so let me do this. So, but Alaric, for Hope, it's like, no, you are basically a father to me, and, it's like, right, I've already put you through so much that you're in a condition right now because of me. I can't ask you to take it anymore on, so... But he's saying, like, right, I have to be the one to do it. Obviously, you have Lizzie avoiding kind of like the MG thing as well as the Ethan thing because she doesn't know what to say. Well, when it comes to MG, because it's like, right, he said how he feels finally. And when it comes to the Ethan thing, it's like, right, I don't know if I'm going to be able to say the right thing. She's worried about never saying the right thing just because of her whole circumstances. Just like, right, like the way my brain works, the way I can be one way 1 minute, then, that she's just scared she will never be able to say the right thing. So she leaves it up to MG, which we'll circle back to that in a second. And she goes to talk to Hope about it. I love that Hope's so happy for her. It's like, oh my God. And she's like, yeah, MG told me he loves me. He's like, oh, really? And what'd you say? She's like really happy for Lizzie. I thought, because like everyone's just, come on, like let that happen already. But, Hope ends up showing her the paper where it's like who needs to make the sacrifice, and it's not who Alaric thinks it is. Because Alaric says, and I thought this was so beautiful, obviously it's tragic for what he has to say of, right, he's lost so many people, some long and drawn out, some were short and unexpected. And it's like, right, over the course of this entire thing, he's lost, and so many people have come and gone in his life just like that. And then it's kind of like heartbreaking just thinking about like how some of those circumstances have played out. But he's like, his biggest thing is the ones that stick the most is the one where you had the biggest regrets. So he plans on making the most memories and trying to say what needs to be said. Because if you have today, say all that you want to say. Because I've been thinking about that Sleeping with Sirens song. Was it Roger Rabbit? I think about that from time to time. I hadn't heard the song in such a long time, and then it started like rummaging through my head like past couple months. So it very apt song to think about in this regard. It's just but the message we could all live by, like if you have today, say what you need to say. Once it get into the whole thing of like, yeah, because tomorrow's never guaranteed type of thing. But for Alaric, he's like, wait, it's not me, it's my daughter. That changes everything. It's like, she's my daughter, but Hope's like, right, but anyone else, these are other people's children. These are sons and daughters, fathers in your case. It's like so Lizzie has to be the one to do it because she's the one that can siphon off Ken's magic and weaken him enough that she might even be able to deal the final blow. And maybe as a heretic, she can get away fast enough. But even then, it's like the chances still aren't good. And at the end of the day, Hope is saying that, because the whole conversation has been like, I've been told I need to be ready to let go. Everyone's been telling me to let go. And now it's like, right, this is Lizzie's choice. She told Lizzie and Lizzie's accepted it. She told her mom. She talked to Josie about it. And so I thought it was this beautiful thing of, you know, them kind of side by side again, like her and Hope side by side again, talking about this. And obviously, Alaric wanting there to be a celebration. I think very similarly to how when they were celebrating Hope's life before she became a hybrid. I think a very similar thing in that regard. So it's more so like, right, we all need to kind of be cheering on just because we don't know how this final battle is going to play out. So, and even him being like, right, like eventually Lizzie will get married. So just in case we don't get the chance, let's have the father-daughter dance. And like, I thought that was so beautiful. I think in the end though, it's not. I don't think Lizzie's going to die. Now the show could end up going like, no, Lizzie does, but I don't think she is. Once again, they've already set it up with the whole MG and Ethan thing, which I'll circle into, talk about that and kind of circle it into this conversation. But MG went to Ethan and told him he can't take part in this battle because if he does, using his powers continuously, he'll die. But he's like, right, I'll just won't use my powers. But taking him inside of the therapy box, it's like, nope. You see someone in danger, you're going to use your powers. I want you as far away from this, buddy, because like if you use your powers, you will die. So I need you to not use them. So ultimately, Ethan kind of agrees and leaves. But it's like, yeah, maybe you should tell. And he's like, yeah, we could have made a good team, But MG's like, no, we already did, buddy. I thought it was. I really like that friendship, and for Ethan, he's like, oh, you should probably also tell Lizzie how you feel. He's like, I did. And it's like, oh, what'd she say? Kind of enough to say, man, that girl is so confusing. And they're both laughing about it. And because it's like, right, your family, your mom, your sister, you need to go spend time with them. We can't ask you to sacrifice yourself in this battle because if you're here, you will use your powers. And I think that's what's going to come. It's going to come down to. I think Ethan's going to sacrifice himself for both MG and Lizzie. Because once again, I made this comparison before because they made the promise. Because Lizzie doesn't know about this. No one else does. They made the promise no matter what, someone's not going to come out of this fight. They even said like 2 people weren't going to make it. And now we kind of got one of those. And now Lizzie might be the other one. We'll wait to see whether there ends up being more. It's what the initial plan was. Obviously, things have subsequently changed since then. But that was the initial plan, that no matter what, at least 2 people were going to be sacrificed during the fight. But I think Ethan and MG made the promise of Lizzie won't be that person. No one else knows that they've made that pact, so that's going to be interesting. Now, at the time, I even made the parallel, I believe, to the whole when Catherine was getting taken out at the end. Damon was going to be making the sacrifice, but Stefan stepped in. So I think that's what's going to happen. I think MG is going to stop Lizzie, and then Ethan's going to come in the last second and save MG. It's like, right, you both deserve to be together. And he's going to sacrifice himself. Because even MG's like, right at your core, you save people because you are a hero at your core. And I think for Ethan, it's like, this is the best way, like, obviously protecting someone he cares about in both fronts, protecting his best friend and the girl that they both obviously care about. Like, I think that's how that's going to play out in the end. We'll see. And like I said, it could just be like it ends up 100% being Ethan, but we'll have to wait and see. I mean, 100% being Lizzie. Sorry, that's what I meant to say. So we'll see. But like I said, this episode is also about like figuring out relationship stuff between people because, or diving into it because we deal with the whole. Obviously, Jed is still pissed at Ben's situation, and Neven's like, right, you gave us the idea, so we'll handle things on our own. Because for him, it's like, you want to take away, you were trying to cure me of my wolf side, thinking it was a curse, it was like a hindrance, which I get it. Like, Ben wanted to help you because obviously he has a curse situation of his own, so he wanted to help you because it's like, because also now we as the audience know what Jeb did to, I keep saying Jeb like, because I got under the banner of heaven in my head, Jed, how he ended up activating his curse was killing his father. So carry that weight with you. So it is, it's a legitimate curse. But for Jed, it's like, no, this is a part of me. And you wanting to get rid of that, it's like, it's almost an attack against me and my pack. And so you're endangering me and the people I care, the people I'm in charge of, the people I care about. But, Finch had to call him out, saying like, right, you being so against Ben will end up not accepting his help, could end up being more of an issue, because like what he said was true, that this is bigger than both of you, your personal feelings. And it's like, right, the reason why Dr. Salzman is willing to trust Ben is that he was willing to sacrifice himself to save the entire school, and that changed Jed's mind about him. But it's like, right, if you want to make things right, don't sacrifice yourself. Like, dying is the easy way. I was like, stay here and kind of make up for what's going down. So it's like, right, I want you to be here, but I want you to see my wolf side, and so you can fully understand, like, that this is a part of me. And, but yeah, just stay away because I don't want to hurt you. But he's like, you can't hurt me. So we're going to go through this together. I think that's a very intimate thing to see someone in that moment, that vulnerability of being in their wolf form. So there's that element. Then there's the whole Cleo and Caleb thing, which is so sweet. Like the whole him like, oh yeah, what's your favorite thing about me? Is it this? And she's like, no. He's like, no, don't worry about it. I'm gonna figure it out at one point in time. I love that he's like, right. What was the whole thing he was saying I thought was so cute, where he was like, oh, you don't want me to make your choices for you, and you don't want me to be overprotective unless it's necessary or you need me to be that way. But you also don't want to tell me everything because you're worried I'm going to overreact. And she's like, kinda? And I'm like, that's super cute. Because basically her visions are not just quite visions. Because she tried to go see Ken, see what he was up to. But it was more than a vision, because they ended up connecting to the point he threw a knife. And she exited the vision and everything. But it cut her arm and also came into this plane of existence. So she goes back, and it turns out we find out what she really is. It's kind of interesting how this is kind of a setup for, what was the episode title is really long, but it's basically like, by the end of this, you'll finally know who you're meant to be, or something like that, or what you're meant to be. And I think that applies both, for Lizzie, for Cleo, for Landon, in so many regards. So it turns out that she's a Fury. She's initially an Oracle, but an Oracle who is able to see things and change destiny becomes a Fury. Turns out she's the last one of them. And he's like, nature kind of has its balance. So it's like, right, you're meant to guide me. So that's why this plane of existence kind of exists, so you can be my counsel. And it's like, right, let's work together. First and foremost, I will let everyone live. Just bring me the hybrid, and she must die. And it's like, no, because if they get rid of Hope, even if there's no guarantee Ken's going to keep his word, because he'll probably reign over them, and there'll be no other being strong enough to stand in his way. She continues to be their trump card. She's a major player, or has a major role in this fight. So, obviously, Cleo is not keen on sacrificing her. Which once again is ironic, considering at one point in time Cleo wanted to kill Hope, but that was just to make her the hybrid. So, but he also makes it clear that there's ashes from the tree that he's getting his daughter to forge into a god weapon. So it's like, right, just like the daggers were made from the ashes of the white oak. So it's got the same principle, except once again the white oak, well, unless it's a white oak stake, the white oak daggers could only dagger them and put them to sleep. The white oak stake could straight up kill them. So obviously, he's armed with that potentially. So, but Cleo wasn't going to work with him. It's like she's not going to sacrifice Hope, and tried to leave. But by the time Caleb gets in there, it was a trap. And it's like, cool, if you don't hand me Hope, I'm going to kill him. But Caleb's like, don't do that. And I was worried. I was curious if in the end Cleo was going to do it. But it's like, right, she has to put the safety of everyone first, no matter what she feels. And she's like, Caleb, the thing I love, like, obviously most about you is your eyes. I was like wondering, like I said, if last minute was she going to bring Hope into this, but she didn't, because she knows that they can't let things can't let him have his way. And once again, anything that happens in that world happens in the real world. So he ended up killing Caleb. So the fact is they didn't cut back to his body in the real world. Maybe there's going to be some loophole there. But part of me wonders, it's also because we'll talk about it later. The show's status, part of me wonders how much was had to be filmed last second. So maybe certain scenes and story elements playing out a little differently or wrapping up differently than they were originally going to be. We'll have to wait and see. But to kind of get the full scope of because I don't know if these last episodes are going to be what they originally were. Maybe some parts are, but other parts had to be completely changed, or maybe it's just the last episode that's changed. Well, like I said, I'll talk about that in a second. But it's sad that at the same time Cleo is losing Caleb while everyone's kind of celebrating right, we're gonna do this, we're gonna win this fight, and then Lizzie telling MG that she doesn't want to waste any time because she doesn't know, none of us know how this is going to play out. And for her saying that because of the way she is, never wanting to say the wrong thing, she's like, that's why I chickened out when it came to what you said to me, or when it came to talking to Ethan. She says that I've always kind of backed away from something good for me because I always feel like I never deserved it. So that's why she always kind of made excuses and probably never really paid MG attention, despite it being kind of a clear to her. But it's she always turned a blind eye to it because she knew MG would be good for her and she didn't believe she deserved it. So, and they were about to kiss. I was like, please. But, because she even said it herself, the timing was never going to be right. It's never on their side. There's always something. And the kiss gets interrupted with Cleo saying that he's gone. And obviously that's going to be a hard blow for everyone because obviously Caleb's a buddy of theirs and they care about, he's a friend and ally, part of the Super Squad. But also for MG, he was family. He was the only actual family that outside of his own, because obviously things between him and his own family in that regard. But kind of once again, wasn't expecting a death at this point in time. I thought we weren't going to get that till the end. But once again, even on the battlefield, we have no idea how that's going to play out, even with the plan. Because the plan is to set off the bomb, but that was initially supposed to be plan B. That was supposed to be not their main plan, but it's right. If we don't go with it being our main plan, we set the chances of there being a whole bunch of deaths. This will lead to the less, at least there'll be one person that dies. If we don't do this, if we save it for plan B, there could be a lot more other people that die if we try to fight this out regularly. So we'll see how things kind of go from there. But as I was talking about before, sadly, the CW canceled Legacies. Once again, it's that conversation. Just not enough people watching stuff, and obviously shakeups at Warner Brothers Discovery with the merger and everything. So sadly, this was one of many shows on the CW that got the axe. So, and it's such a bummer because it's right here at the end of its season. So I think Julie Plex said that they were going to make the show have a satisfying end. So that's why I'm saying, I wonder, because the show went off because it was supposed to air about, a week or two ago or something like that. It was supposed to come back, but it didn't. No, it's there was at one point in time, the episodes were supposed to start airing again, but they didn't. I think the same thing for Walker. I think that might have been from other extenuating circumstances because Jared Padalecki, I don't know if it had anything to do with him being in an accident, them needing more time post-production wise. I don't know. But this show definitely, only it only has 3 episodes left now. Well, now 2. So I don't know how much has changed. It's kind of a bummer. I wish the show could have gotten at least a full 5 seasons, because I feel this God stuff, they probably would have extended that into the next season, but they're probably going to resolve it all now, or at the very least, because this Ken stuff, the God stuff was so introduced last minute this season that I get the feeling that probably would have been a bigger through line going forward. Maybe you would have had to deal with Ken, and maybe his other siblings would have resurfaced and stuff like that. Maybe that type of situation. Kind of almost I made the parallel before, kind of the Michelsons and the Heretics. It would have been something like that, but sadly the show is cut short. But I'm curious to see how this plays out. Like I said, I get the feeling they might have changed stuff at the end, because I doubt the ending's going to be so cliffhangery, because they might have gone back. I haven't read anything. That's just something I remember Julie Plex saying. I read a snippet of something a little while back of her saying that. So like I said, we'll have to wait and see what ends up happening in these last 2 episodes of Legacies. So, But really, that's all I'm going to talk about. Until the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.